Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Reema Gupta from University of Delhi. Today we are going to discuss about the module that is Solid State Sintering Part 1, and this is from paper Processing Ceramics. So students, let us see what we are going to learn in this module. So we will be learning about solid state sintering, and it will covers sintering and coarsening. Second, we will be learning about driving force for sintering. So before moving towards the module, let's introduce some terms. So the green ceramic bodies prepared by any of the various ceramic forming processes have a very low relating density that varies from zero point 0.4 to zero point 0.5 with very little mechanical strength. To make them very useful, they are subjected to firing at a high temperature from zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.9 times of the melting point to increase the density, to control the grain size and develop the mechanical strength and other properties. So the aim of the firing process is to sinter the green body. So the process for sintering results in bonding between the individual particles to form strong grain boundaries and in the reduction and elimination of pore space between the particles so as to approach 100% theoretical density. After sintering is complete, the firing process, if continued, result in grain growth which may be undesirable. So we will be discussing all these things in this module. The sintering process can be solid state sintering or liquid phase sintering. In solid state sintering, there is no liquid phase present during the firing operation. The firing temperature is between zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.9 of the melting point. The bonding of particles and the reduction in porosity occurs by solid state diffusion. Whereas in case of liquid phase sintering, a small amount of liquid, typically a few percent, is present during firing. In the clay-based bodies, a siliceous liquid phase is formed during firing. In some cases, a phase which forms a liquid during firing is deliberately added to the starting powder. The liquid can fill some of the pores but usually is insufficient to remove all the porosities. Additional pressure occur which cause further densification, and if the liquid volume is large, typically greater than 25% of the total volume, then the liquid can fill all the pores and a dense product can be obtained. The liquid phase can form a glass or a ceramic phase on cooling. Therefore, the liquid phase sintering produces better densification at lower firing temperatures. However, the disadvantage of liquid phase sintering is that the ceramic may not be usable at higher temperatures where the liquid may deform. Now we will first discuss the solid state sintering. So in solid state sintering, the two main terminologies are there. First is sintering and second is coarsening. So this figure shows the microstructures before and after sintering. Before sintering, the green body consists of particles in contact with one another with a large amount of pore space. As a result of sintering, the grain boundaries develop and the pore volume is reduced. If the firing is not carried out correctly, coarsening may occur instead of sintering as shown in this figure. In coarsening, the grain size as well as pore size increases, the density does not increase, and the resulting body has poor mechanical and other properties. Depending on whether the firing leads to sintering or coarsening, or to an intermediate behavior, the sintering behavior may be represented by the plot which is shown on the right side of this slide. If only the coarsening occurs, the grain size increases with very little increase in the density. However, if sintering occurs, then the density increases with grain size remaining nearly constant until very high density has been achieved and the sintering is nearly complete, and then if the firing is continued, the grain size increases with very little further densification. Now we will discuss about the driving force for sintering. The driving force for any process is the decrease in the free energy which occurs as a result of that process. For sintering and coarsening, the driving force is the reduction in the surface energy. The green body consists of particles with their free surfaces, and as a result of sintering, most of these free surface is replaced by grain boundaries. This figure shows a grain boundary in contact with a pore. After the formation of grain boundary, the free surface is replaced by the grain boundary itself. For this to happen, there must be a decrease in energy, and the condition for this is given as gamma GB is less than twice of gamma SV cos phi by 2, where gamma GB is the grain boundary energy, gamma SV is the energy of solid vapor interface or simply the surface energy of the solid, and phi is called dihedral angle. As the right hand term cannot be negative, so phi by 2 must be less than 90 degrees, and so phi should be less than 180 degrees. Usually phi is approximately 120 degree for oxides. This implies that gamma GB divided by gamma SV, or the ratio of gamma GB and gamma SV, is nearly 1. For metals, this ratio is between 0.25 and 0.5. For the sintering to occur, the pores have to get filled up by the atoms. There are local driving forces present due to the curvature difference between the different locations in the body, which are responsible for local free energy, which we will be discussing in later slides. So before moving towards the local driving forces, we will first discuss the local differences in the curvature. So when the particles are initially in contact, form neck to the point of contact, which can be seen in the figure on the left hand side. So the particle surfaces have a convex curvature that is positive, whereas the necks have a concave curvature that is negative. But if the contact between the particles are not proper, these result into the local differences in the curvature, which we will be discussing in further slides. Now let us discuss about the local driving forces and the effect of curvature. Now consider three surfaces. One is flat, the other is concave, and the third one is convex, which is shown in this figure as A, B and C. To describe any curvature, two radii of curvature, that is R1 and R2, are needed. For a spherical surface, the two radii of curvature are same, that is R1 is equal to R2 is equal to R. For a flat surface, R is infinity. So it can be shown that the following relations exist for surfaces with different curvatures, which are shown in this figure. So the first is difference in the chemical potential. So for an atoms, the difference in chemical potential is given as delta mu. So delta mu per formula unit on a curved surface and on a flat surface is given as delta mu is equal to mu minus mu naught, which is equal to gamma omega bracket start 1 divided by R1 plus 1 divided by R2, where mu is the chemical potential of the atom at the curved surface, mu naught is the chemical potential at the flat surface, gamma is the surface energy, omega is the atomic volume, and R1 and R2 are the two radii of the curvature of the convex surface. As the curvature is positive for the convex surface and negative for the concave surface, the chemical potential of an atom on a convex surface is larger than that on the flat surface, which in turn is larger than the potential of an atom on a concave surface. So the second is the difference in the chemical potential leads to a difference in vapor pressure over the surfaces through the following relation, which is given as delta mu is equal to K T ln of P by P naught, which in words gives the relation that ln P by P naught is equal to ln of, ln is natural log of 1 plus delta P by P naught, which is also equal to delta P by P naught is equal to gamma omega by kT bracket start 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2, where P is the vapor pressure over the curved surface, P naught is the vapor pressure over a flat surface. Therefore, the vapor pressure over a convex surface is higher than over a flat surface, and that over a concave surface is lower than that of a flat surface. Now the third is the concentration of vacancies just under a curved surface, which is given by this relation, that is natural log of C by C naught is equal to minus natural log of P by P naught, which in turn equal to minus gamma omega divided by kT bracket start 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2. Thus, the vacancy concentration under a concave surface is larger than that under a flat surface. Similarly, the vacancy concentration under a convex surface is smaller than that under a flat surface. So now we will be discussing about material transport due to local driving forces. For the densification to occur during sintering, the atoms have to be transported to the pores so as to fill them up. This matter transport can occur through different paths and by different mechanism. So to understand this, let us consider the early stages of sintering, and when the two particles initially in contact form a neck of a point of contact during the early stages of sintering. So the particle contact now becomes a grain boundary. The neck has a concave surface and so has a negative radius of curvature, while the spherical particles have positive curvature, and because of local driving force as described before, there is transport of atoms from particle surface to the neck and from the grain boundaries to the neck. Now we will discuss the local material transport due to the local driving forces. So for the densification to occur during sintering, the atoms have to be transported to the pores so as to fill them up. This matter transport can occur through different paths and by different mechanism. To understand this, let us consider the early example of sintering. Two particles initially in contact form a neck at the point of contact during the early stage of sintering, which is shown in this figure. The particle contact now become a grain boundary, and the neck has a concave surface and so has a negative radius of curvature, while the spherical particle surface has a positive curvature. Because of the local driving forces as described before, there is a transport of atoms from the particle surface to the neck and from the grain boundaries to the neck, which is shown in this figure. The various transport paths are summarized in this figure, which we have discussed earlier also. The expression giving the rate of neck growth have been derived from various transport mechanisms which are given again in this table. Taking the case of the neck growth by vapor transport, the particle surface has a positive radius of curvature while the neck has a negative radius of curvature. The vapor pressure is higher over the particle surface than over the neck, and so there is a flow of atoms from the particle surface to the neck. Now let us discuss the equations governing the neck growth. Now for all the transport mechanism, the neck growth follows the equation as x to the power n divided by r to the power m is directly proportional to t. So let's discuss about this equation and its derivation. Now taking the particle surface to be nearly flat as compared to the neck, the excess pressure over the particle surface over that on the neck is given as delta P, which is equal to gamma m P naught divided by d rho RT, where P naught is the vapor pressure over a flat surface, m is the molecular weight of the particle species, d is the density, and rho is the radius of curvature of the neck. So the rate of condensation at the neck, that is m, is proportional to delta P, which is given as m is equal to alpha k delta P gram per centimeter square per second, where alpha is the accommodation coefficient and k is m by 2 pi r t to power half. Then ma by d is equal to dv by dt, and the units will be centimeter cube by second. So here dV is the increase in the volume at the neck. Then using the geometry, one gets that x by r is equal to gamma m P naught T D bracket close r to power 2 by 3 t to power 1 by 3. So this equation results to the equation that x to power 3 by r is directly proportional to ft. So this expression is very much similar to the expression which we have written initially, and this equation can be derived for all other mechanisms. So in general, we can write that x to power n divided by r to power m is directly proportional to t. Here n and m for the various mechanism can be found from the table and the experimental data which can be fitted. So students, let us summarize what we have learned in this module. So we have learned that ceramic green body has low relative density and that varies from 0.4 to 0.5. They have high porosity and poor mechanical strength. Next, we have learned that it has high temperature operation coefficient for the sintering and that varies from 0.5 to 0.9 times melting temperature. Sintering can be solid state sintering or liquid phase sintering. So in case of solid state sintering, driving force for sintering is the reduction in the surface energy due to replacement of surface energy by the grain boundary energy. And for this, we have an expression that G of GB is less than twice of GSV times cos phi by 2. So in this case, initially a neck forms at the particle-particle contact, then the neck has negative curvature while the particle surface have positive curvature. And due to these curvature differences, the chemical potential of an atom on the convex surface is larger than the atoms on concave surface. Moreover, because of the local driving forces, there is transport of atoms from particle surface to the neck and to the grain boundary to the neck. In addition, there is diffusion of atoms from dislocation to neck, and these last two only result in densification while the other processes result in coarsening. So we have read that analytical expressions for these various mechanisms and have generalized form, that is x to power n divided by r to power m, which is directly proportional to t, where x is neck radius and r is particle radius. Thank you.